She was benched, buried by bureaucracy, and told she'd never fly again. But when the world's most feared pilot refused to land unless she was in the sky, everything changed. This isn't just a story about redemption. It's about building a legacy from silence. Welcome to my channel. They never say it out loud, not where I can hear it. But I've caught enough side glances and muttered jokes to know exactly what they think. Don't let that woman anywhere near the cockpit. The words hit just as I crossed the tarmac at Yuma Ridge Air Base, Arizona, the early dawn wind slicing across the asphalt. I didn't flinch. I didn't stop. I just kept walking toward Hangar 6, the only place that still felt like mine. But then a voice crackled over the base-wide comms, splintering the stillness like a lightning strike. Control Center. Raven 1 will not land unless Hawkeye 09 is airborne. The entire tarmac went still. For a second, it felt like the wind itself paused to listen. Raven 1. That name alone turned stomachs. A combat pilot whose sim record was spoken about with the kind of reverence usually reserved for folklore. No one knew exactly who he flew for, just that his tactics were brutal, his reflexes inhuman, and his streak untouched. And now he was here, refusing to land unless Hawkeye 09, was in the sky. I kept walking. At 5:32 a.m., I stood alone in the Yuma Ridge maintenance hangar, elbow deep in the guts of an F-12 Valkyrie, my flight suit streaked with grease, name patch dulled with wear. Lieutenant Commander Jordan Vega. No wings. Just a threadbare patch on my chest labeled Systems and Support. That's what they saw me as, support. Not a pilot. Never mind that I'd passed every advanced aerial maneuver exam with distinction. Never mind I could fly circles around half the squadron with my eyes shut and one engine out. 18 months ago, after a full sim trial, they branded me with a phrase that still echoes in the hollows of my mind. Reflex response not optimized for combat. Translation? Disqualified. So now I manage flight simulations, calibrate HUDs, fine-tune weapons drills. I prep the aircraft, hand off the keys to hotshots who call me techie, like it's a compliment. When I offer tactical insights, they pat me on the back like I just handed them fresh coffee. Vega's good with the back-end stuff, they say. Leave the flight ops to the real pilots. Colonel Darius Finch made that especially clear last quarter. During an operations debrief, after I'd corrected a targeting vector error that would have grounded an entire squadron, he'd smiled like I was a precocious intern. She's sharp, but let's keep her behind a wrench, not a stick. The room had laughed. I didn't. Instead, I got in earlier than everyone else. Ran diagnostics on jet subsystems most pilots barely understand. I rewrote mission sims to push boundaries without tipping trainees into full system failure. And in the hours no one tracked, I slipped into the base's level 6 flight simulator and flew. God, I flew. I didn't fly for attention. I flew to keep the edges sharp, to remember who I was. Then one night, Lieutenant Mark Danner caught me mid-maneuver, executing a twist recovery from a nosedive at Mach 1. He'd come to ask about an error in the flight module and wound up watching me dance through a blackout scenario most aviators couldn't even finish. How long have you been training like this? He asked, wide-eyed. I flipped off the sim, already unstrapping. Since the day they said I didn't qualify. Danner stood there, speechless, watching the screen blink back to the start menu. I could tell he didn't know what to say. He'd never seen someone fly like that, not live. Vega, that maneuver, that's not standard. I built it myself, I said, grabbing my logbook. Based on analysis of failure points in advanced drills. And guess what? Works 83% of the time in blackout conditions. He nodded slowly, then noticed the patch on my simulator harness. Faded, barely readable. Just one detail stitched in silver thread. 09. He raised an eyebrow. You kept the tag? I looked down at it and shrugged. It's not a memory, I said. It's a challenge. He wanted to say more, I could tell. But I left before he could. My boots echoed in the hangar, the rhythm of someone used to moving where people didn't expect her to belong. That night, I thought Danner would forget about it. He didn't. 3 days later, he came into the hangar holding a tablet like it was a live grenade. You need to see this. The file was buried in a secure archive labeled High Threat Simulation 134A, flagged for deletion. It showed a mock engagement between a pilot-designated Hawkeye 09 and the AI-modeled enemy known only as Raven 1. a sim built from the neural combat data of real-world adversaries. In the recording, 09 didn't engage Raven 1 in a frontal assault. She drew him in, lured him into tighter spirals, forced errors through predictive patterning. 11 minutes later, Raven 1 flamed out and ejected. First and only defeat on record. And then, just before the screen cut to black, his voice came through, distorted but audible. "Control. I need to know who that was." They didn't answer him. Not in the sim. Not afterward. But now he was here, demanding I meet him in real airspace. Not a game. Not a drill. And in that moment, as Danner stared at me across the break room, realization dawning behind his eyes, I knew something had changed. Not in the system. In me. Because the only thing more dangerous than a ghost is one who never stopped flying. When the alarms sounded the next morning, it wasn't the standard bass wake-up tone. It was urgent, distorted, sharp enough to jolt muscle memory alive. All personnel, condition amber. Unidentified craft entering restricted airspace. Potential hostile intent. Ground crews secure base. Pilots to scramble prep. I was on the floor with my boots on before the voice had finished the second sentence. My hands moved automatically, flight suit zipped, helmet bag in one hand, utility tablet in the other. Not that I had clearance to be anywhere near the flight line during an alert, but instincts override orders sometimes. Especially when you hear your old call sign mentioned by someone the whole damn world considers untouchable. Outside the hangar, chaos unfurled like a tactical drill someone forgot to choreograph. Crew chiefs shouted over the roar of afterburners. Technicians sprinted to refit sensor pods. Flight officers with red bands on their sleeves barked out flight statuses. And at the heart of it, Colonel Finch stood with a headset clamped to his ear, eyes narrowing at the incoming chatter. Unknown aircraft broadcasting in open military band. Not squawking standard IFF. And they're using our internal terminology, someone muttered beside him. Finch growled. Broadcast the intercept challenge again. Full strength. The voice over the tower comm changed pitch, this time unmistakably direct. Unidentified aircraft, identify and state your intent. You are within Yuma Ridge restricted airspace. Failure to comply will result in immediate interception. Silence. Then a voice. Smooth. Measured. Eastern accent. Slavic, maybe. But the phrasing? Tactically American. Control. This is call sign Raven 1. I am requesting flight engagement with pilot Hawkeye 09. And just like that, it felt like every turbine on base shut down. Everyone looked up. Even the birds stopped circling. Finch's head snapped toward the control booth. What the hell kind of joke is that? No one answered. Then Lieutenant Danner stepped forward from the outer crowd, his voice louder than anyone expected. I know who he's talking about. Finch's gaze locked onto him like a heat seeker. Explain that sentence. Danner glanced toward me, his posture straight. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Jordan Vega. She flew as Hawkeye 09 in sim engagement 134A 14 months ago. Raven 1 lost that day. I don't know what stunned Finch more, that I was the pilot in question, or that Raven 1 had ever been beaten. That can't be. That match was black-flagged. No identity listed. No logs attached. Only one person had their assignment changed the next day. Vega, Danner said, backing it up with a tablet already queued to the reclassification notice. Finch didn't speak, just stared at me, like he was seeing someone who'd always been there, but never really looked at. Then the radio flared again. Control, I will not land until Hawkeye 09 is airborne. I crossed borders for this. I will wait. Or I will escalate. Escalate. That word hit hard. Because when someone like Raven 1 says it, he doesn't mean threats. He means blackmail. Exposure. Fallout. I stepped forward. Sir, I said, requesting permission to engage Raven 1 in unarmed tactical demonstration. Finch blinked. You're not cleared for combat airspace. With respect, Colonel, I replied, this isn't combat. It's performance. And I'm the only one here who's ever kept up with him. There was a long silence. Someone behind Finch whispered, if he came here for her, what happens if we say no? Finch let out a breath like it hurt to exhale. Fine. You're airborne. Tactical demo only. You embarrassed this base, and you're grounded permanently. Sir, I said, I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I turned to go, but paused at the doorway. Permission to use Valkyrie Red 09 for this engagement. Finch stared at me. That jet had sat untouched for over a year. No active pilot assigned. The same airframe I had aced my final sim in before being pulled from flight status. It's already calibrated to your biometrics, he said at last. Fine. Red 09 is yours. Don't get it wrecked. I'll bring her back better than she left. And with that, I moved through the crew bay like a ghost walking through its old house. Technicians made way. Ground crews paused. No jokes. No smirks. Just silence. Respect, maybe. Or all. Either way, it didn't matter. I was headed for the sky. They say the air smells different before a flight. It's not true. The air smells the same. Fuel, oil, ozone. But you smell different. Sweat laced with anticipation. Breath thick with adrenaline. Nerves running tight through your fingers like power lines. As I stepped onto the tarmac toward Valkyrie Red 09, I wasn't shaking. Not even a little. If anything, I felt still for the first time in over a year. Not calm exactly, just aligned. Red 09 sat gleaming in the desert sun, tucked between maintenance hangars like a coiled viper. Sleek. Red-streaked wings, dual afterburners, black canopy glass tinted just enough to keep the mystery alive. I hadn't touched her in 14 months. But my hand found the panel release like I'd done it yesterday. The tech crew didn't speak as they finished pre-flight. No salutes. No checklists rattled off. Just the head nod from Lieutenant Cho, the crew chief. The kind that says, you know what you're doing. Don't prove us wrong. I climbed into the cockpit, helmet under one arm. It felt like slipping into a second skin. Systems came alive with a quiet hum, HUD flickering to life in soft gold. I tapped through diagnostics as the engines warmed, left hand on throttle, right on the stick. And then I saw it, just ahead in the sky. A shadow slicing across the sun, wings swept, nose low. Raven 1. He flew like myth incarnate. A composite jet, no clear origin. A little MiG, a little Raptor, maybe something no one had ever admitted existed. Modified, for sure, sleeker than anything we had. His vapor trail leaving slashes in the sky. Red 09, tower called. You are cleared for launch. Raven 1 holds at 22,000 feet. He's waiting. Copy, I said, pressing the throttle forward. Red 09 roared to life. Engine screaming like something remembered. The G-force pinned me back as I shot down the runway. Nose up, wheels up, and then I was flying. And flying felt. Not simulated. Not imagined. Not remembered. Real. Every twitch of the stick was instant response. I let her climb in a spiral, pushing her gently until I broke 21,000 feet. The sky darkened from azure to deep blue. Raven's jet hung just above me in a perfect combat position. Red 09. Came his voice over the open channel. Hawkeye, you came. I never left, I replied, steady. There was silence. Then a laugh. Low, almost grateful. No weapons. Just maneuver. Let's see if you're still the one who sees before I move. That was the challenge. No missiles. No rounds. Just reflexes. Prediction. Survival in pure air. We danced. It started slow, test patterns. Spirals. S-curves. Barrel rolls. Then came the feints. He'd dive and cut like he was testing me, seeing how fast I could match him. I didn't follow. I guided. Used his aggression against him. Like water around rock. Defensive flying, built on bait and snapback. I let him close. Let him feel victory until the angle shifted, and suddenly I was behind him. Again, and again, and again. Raven flew with every trick in the manual, and a few I hadn't seen before. Post-stall slides. Inverted dives. Power climb yaws that would have shattered lesser jets. But Red 09 held. Because I didn't fly her like a machine. I flew her like a partner. We fell into a tight corkscrew at 30,000 feet, burning velocity like fuel. I pulled him into the same spiral that had undone him in the sim. A trap disguised as a retreat. The moment came fast. He overshot. Just slightly. I cut throttle, dropped airspeed, then rolled hard and appeared on his six like a phantom. Again, he whispered, breathless. You see me, before I even move. Because I studied you, I replied. Because you taught me how to beat you. He didn't answer for a while. Then, quietly, you're not just a pilot, Hawkeye. You're the equation they stopped solving. We coasted in a wide arc above the desert. Below, the base looked frozen in amber, every pair of eyes watching two shadows weaving like threads across sky. Will you keep your word? I asked. I crossed borders to fly against you. And I lost again. My silence is yours. His jet peeled away, like a knife across silk. He disappeared east, not chased, not intercepted, just gone. I guided Red 09 back toward base. Ease down through crosswinds. Throttle steady. Landing gear down. Wheels hit the tarmac with a clean kiss of rubber. As I taxied toward Hangar 6, I saw the crowd. Pilots, mechanics, flight ops, even the base commander. No one said a word. I popped the canopy and climbed down, helmet in hand. Colonel Finch walked toward me, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was level. Lieutenant Commander Vega. Effective immediately, your flight status is reinstated. Full combat clearance. And one more thing. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a patch. Black background. Silver stitching. Hawkeye 09. He handed it to me. Make sure they remember. I fastened the patch to my flight suit. And for the first time in 14 months, I felt like I belonged in the sky again. 3 hours after I stepped off the tarmac, I found myself sitting alone in an ops room that hadn't been used in years. Dim lights. One steel table. A mirrored panel on the far wall. I knew what that mirror meant. Every pilot does. It meant I wasn't alone in this room. Not really. Someone was behind that glass, watching, waiting to decide whether to cheer or court-martial me. The door opened, and Colonel Finch walked in. He held a tablet in one hand and a thermos in the other. He didn't offer coffee, just sat down across from me and looked like he was trying to find a version of me that fit the paperwork he'd always believed in. You shouldn't have been in the air today, he started. Permission was granted. I replied evenly. He held up the tablet. I'm aware. But even that shouldn't have happened. You were benched, reassigned, blacklisted by a review board I chaired. His tone didn't carry regret, just confusion, like he was trying to do the math backward and couldn't figure out where it had gone wrong. I leaned forward. You watched that sim tape after the fact, didn't you? Back then. He didn't answer, but his silence told me everything. You saw me beat Raven 1 and buried it. It wasn't personal, he said. It was procedural. If the footage got out, it would have shaken morale. He was untouchable. Your win wasn't a victory. It was a threat to the myth. I swallowed the bitterness. So you cut me out of my own flight path. Finch looked down at his hands. For the first time since I'd known him, the confidence cracked. You weren't supposed to be better than him, he admitted. You weren't even supposed to be on that flight roster. Someone pulled your clearance logs and flagged it. We got orders to shut it down. Quietly. There it was. Not doubt in my ability. Fear of it. I'm building a program, I said suddenly. Flight from silence. For every crew member pushed to the margins because they didn't fit the profile. For the ghosts, sir. The ones you benched before they even got a chance. Finch blinked. You think there are others like you? I know there are, I replied. I pulled a file from my vest pocket and slid it across the table. Inside were 5 names. Crew chiefs, radio techs, logistics staff, all with flag training performance records far above their current positions. I'd spent the last year tracking them, quietly, watching them, waiting. He opened the folder and scanned the first few entries. One name made him pause. This tech's working in parts. She scored 97 on reflex training? Better than I did, I said. And she doesn't even know it yet. Finch closed the folder. You'll work with Lieutenant Danner. Build it. But you keep it off radar until you've got something real. I smiled. It's already real. You just haven't seen it yet. He stood. Then make me see it. Before I left the room, he said one more thing, so quiet I almost missed it. You deserved better than we gave you. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Some debts collect themselves over time. I stepped into the hallway and found Danner waiting, leaning against the wall with 2 mugs of something resembling coffee. Told you they'd have to listen eventually, he said. You keep betting on ghosts, I replied, taking the mug. And eventually, one shows up. He held out a small brown envelope. No label. No markings. I opened it. Inside was a new flight patch. Black cloth. Silver embroidery. A winged eye with a star above it. Hawkeye 09. Beneath it, in stitched block letters, from silence, flight. I ran my thumb over the edge of the patch. Not nostalgia this time. Not sentiment. Just weight. And forward motion. We walked together toward the hangar. The buzz of aircraft idling, hydraulic arms whirring, the scent of Jet A1 in the air. My world. Our world. The one we'd almost been erased from. 3 weeks later, I was sitting cross-legged on a crate in the back of Bay 14, scanning through diagnostics when the ping hit my wrist tablet. A quiet alert, almost shy, as if it knew not to shout. Flight from silence. Candidate review flag, priority. 3 more names. I tapped it open and read through their tags. Cadet Mira Valdez, Communications. Logged 6 undocumented reroutes during an emergency channel collapse. No formal recognition. Corporal J. Thomason, Cargo Logistics. Calculated a last-minute wait shift that saved an entire outbound payload from an off-axis nosedive. Private Leslie Kwan, Mess Hall Scheduler. Had submitted a requisition algorithm that predicted supply burnout with 94% accuracy. None of them had ever touched a cockpit. None of them knew they were even being watched. Yet their instincts whispered pilot. I grinned and typed out a note for Danner. 3 more ghosts. Let's get them evaluated. I had made it my quiet mission to track the misfits. The overlooked. The support staff with flight potential so raw, it scared the system. It felt right. Like returning the favor to a past version of myself. Back when I didn't know I could fly, only that I had to. Around lunchtime, I took a break outside the hangar. Just me, the hot wind, and the rattle of jets overhead. That sound used to sting. Now it reminded me I had a place among them. That's when I saw her. A cadet. Probably 19, maybe 20. Uniform pressed to perfection. Backpack slung too high like she was still learning how to wear it. She was scanning the area, eyes wide like this was her first day outside a classroom. She spotted me and made a beeline. Ma'am? Lieutenant Commander Vega? Depends who's asking. I replied, raising an eyebrow. Cadet Sarah Kim, ma'am, she blurted. I read about your engagement with Raven 1 and the program you're building. I was hoping I could ask a question. I gestured to the bench beside me. Go ahead, Kim. You always stand that straight, or just when you're nervous. She eased into the seat, not fully relaxed, but trying. I respected that. What did it feel like, she asked, when they told you couldn't fly anymore? I leaned back and stared up at the thin veil of clouds hanging above the base. It wasn't anger, I said slowly. It was emptiness. Like someone built a wall between me and the only thing I'd ever wanted, and no one would even explain why. Kim nodded, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve. Did you think they were right? Sometimes, I admitted. The mind plays tricks when silence echoes too long. I started believing the problem was me. Not my skill. Not the politics. Just me. But you kept training? She asked. Every day, I said. Because flying wasn't something I needed to be allowed to do. It was something I needed to be ready for. She looked down at her boots. My instructors say I'm too reactive, that I overcorrect. But I ran a solo sim on my own time and pulled a barrel roll over a climb stall with no blackout. I raised an eyebrow. That sim have blackout compensation off. Yes, ma'am. Then you don't overcorrect. You anticipate. Big difference. Her eyes lit up like I'd handed her a key she didn't know she'd already been holding. You watching the skies yet? I asked. Every night, she said. I dream in vectors. I smiled at that. I remembered the feeling. The way flight logic started shaping how you moved, how you breathed. The way you could close your eyes and see altitude in numbers. You're on my radar now, Cadet Kim. Let's make sure the next time you fly, it's not in silence. She smiled so wide it hurt to look at. Then she stood, saluted too crisply, and walked off like her boots had suddenly found a rhythm they'd been waiting for. That night, as the sun dipped behind the Arizona mountains and painted the sky in bruised gold, I sat near the main runway with a mug of coffee gone cold and a wooden model jet beside me. I traced the name etched on its wings. Hawkeye 09. Not a relic, not a regret, just a reminder. By the time Flight from Silence hit its 3rd month, we had 12 names on the board. 12 ghosts, each one dismissed, misplaced, or forgotten by a system that only recognized polish, never potential. Danner had turned my backroom office into something like a command post. Wireframe boards, personnel files, cross-index sims, and aptitude logs. It looked more like a war room than an evaluation hub. I loved it. Most days started with footage reviews and ended with test flight approvals. We ran exercises in shadows, pre-dawn drills in decommissioned simulators, late-night reflex tests on borrowed hardware. It wasn't official yet, but it was real. One morning, I got a ping from the control tower. LT Commander Vega, unusual signal traffic on passive radar. Please report. I was in the tower stairwell before they'd finished repeating the message. The comms officer on duty, a young woman named Knox, waved me over to a side console. We picked this up 10 minutes ago. No source ID. Encrypted ping bounced off the West relay, then vanished. I stared at the screen. One short pulse, a blip buried inside the noise of commercial traffic. Then it played again. Just a single phrase, encoded in military shorthand. Hawkeye 09. Still watching. My stomach dipped. The signal bore the same echo pulse Raven 1 had used in his initial contact. Any chance this was spoofed? I asked. Knox shook her head. If it was, it came from a system with encrypted signal mimicry. That's high-end military tech. I've seen it twice in 4 years. So it wasn't a prank. It was a message. Not hostile. Not demanding. Just a reminder. And I knew exactly what it meant. I hadn't just earned his respect. I had his attention. For a brief moment, I wondered if he was still flying. If somewhere across the ocean, in a sky shaped like his silence, he was pulling another impossible maneuver and thinking about the one time he lost. The one time a nobody beat him. I didn't tell Finch. Not right away. Instead, I forwarded the recording to a private log and flagged it under a file I'd started the night after our encounter. Contact, Raven 1, mutual surveillance. I knew he wouldn't breach our airspace again. Not unless invited. But I had the strangest sense that he was invested in the outcome of this program, in what I'd do with the second chance the world had tried to take from me. By noon, I'd shoved the message into the back of my mind and returned to business. Danner found me in Base 6, surrounded by 3 of our candidates prepping for sim review. He had a clipboard in hand and something behind his smile. "You'll want to see this," he said. The file was stamped, Confidential Transfer Evaluation, Candidate 014, Thomason, J. On the first page, sim footage stills. On the second, Tactical Performance Review. And on the third, Colonel Finch's signature of endorsement. "What is this?" I asked, eyebrows raised. Finch saw the last batch of flight footage, Danner said. Thomason clocked a 94 on full-scale sim without breaking comms. That's better than some squad leaders. Exactly. Finch greenlit a provisional flight seat. I ran a thumb across the paper. "We're doing it." "Yeah," Danner said. "Eyes a little too shiny for military protocol. We're actually doing it." Before he walked off, he paused. "Also, there's a new patch being sewn for the program." I looked up. "Yeah." He nodded. "Black wing. Open arc. No rank. Just flight." "No rank. Because they've already earned the rest," he said. "They just needed the sky to prove it." That night, I found myself back by the runway, wind cutting across the tarmac, stars pressing down from above like soft needles. I had my model jet beside me again, its wooden edges polished smooth from habit. I thought of Raven 1, watching wherever he was. And I thought of Sarah Kim, her jaw clenched as she steered through turbulence in the flight sim earlier that day. Then I whispered out loud, to no one and maybe to him, "They're not ghosts anymore." The official ceremony wasn't much. No flags, no speeches, just a folding table near the edge of Hangar 3 and a box of patches sealed in thick plastic. Danner held one up between 2 fingers, fresh off the embroidery line. A matte black wing, open arc. In the center, a thin silver line shaped like a rising jet trail. Below it, 2 words in sharp thread. From silence. There were no names, no ranks. The patch wasn't meant to label. It was meant to free. We called the first 5 candidates forward. Thomason, Valdez, Kwan, Ochoa, and Kim. They stood shoulder to shoulder in dusty boots and borrowed flight jackets. I fastened each patch myself, placing it high on their right shoulder, where it would catch light just right when they moved. No one clapped. No one needed to. They'd earned this. Afterward, Kim pulled me aside. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I never thought I'd be seen." "You weren't unseen," I said. "You were waiting." She blinked fast, nodded once, and walked back to join the others. That night, I sat by the airstrip with an old metal thermos and a long list of candidate initials scribbled in my logbook. Above, the sky flickered with the last sparks of sunset. Then came the ping. One soft buzz on my comms. Raven 1 again. "You found them." No signature. Just the line. This time, I didn't feel cold. I felt proud. Like someone who'd started flying again, just in a different way. We lost power in Simbay 2 just after midnight. Nothing dramatic. Just a snap, a flicker, and then total dark. I was still in the seat when it happened, finishing up a solo trial of a new reflex drill for the cadets. Thought maybe a fuse blew. But when I stepped outside, I saw the whole base shimmering with backup lights. Wind howled harder than usual. Storm incoming. Danner caught up to me near the main generator housing, face pale in the glow. Power grid's glitching, he said. Weather's pushing harder than forecast. And we've got 2 trainers still airborne. Who's flying? He checked his slate. Kim and Thomason. My stomach dropped. They were up for a routine night run, with simulated combat uplinks feeding real-time feedback into their controls. But without grid power, the feeds were dark. Comms unreliable. Tower, this is Hawkeye 09. I barked into the emergency line. Request real-time telemetry from Redbirds 7 and 8. Negative, Commander, came the reply. Cloud cover disrupted uplink. We're flying blind. I grabbed a headset. Not if I'm listening. I knew the valley. Knew the wind shift off those desert ridges, the updraft over Sector D3, the downdraft kill zone over Ridge Point. I listened for patterns in static, breaks in rhythm. 2 voices. Thin. Distorted. But there. Vega? Can you hear me? Kim's voice, tight with fear. Copy, cadet. I've got you. Cut, right 5 degrees. Ride the slipstream. Don't climb. There was silence. Then, copy that. Adjusting now. 3 minutes later, I heard her laugh. She'd cleared the draft. Thomason came in right behind. Both jets landed clean. When they stepped off the tarmac, shaking but whole, I didn't say much. Just nodded. They'd faced the sky without vision, and still found their way home. I found him waiting near the edge of the flight line just after dawn. Black coat. No insignia. Civilian ID tag clipped to his belt, the kind that only opened certain doors, very specific doors. He wasn't supposed to be here, but somehow he was. You're Hawkeye 09, he said. Not a question. You must be from somewhere they don't list, I replied. He offered a hand. I'm a listener. My job is to know where the gaps are. I didn't shake, just waited. You built something that shouldn't exist, he continued. A program that rewrote recruitment metrics. Identified skill before command did. Not a program, I said. A mirror. We just reflect what the system refuses to see. He nodded like he respected that. We've had eyes on you since the Raven 1 incident. I didn't flinch. And we're expanding. Quietly. New command tiers. Selective training units. We want flight from silence to go national. I paused. This was bigger than I imagined. Bigger than Danner, than Finch, than even Raven 1's influence. You want me to hand it over, I said. No, he replied. We want you to lead it. I looked back toward the hangar, where Kim and Thomason were already prepping for pre-dawn drills, where a dozen ghosts were finally flying in daylight. I'll lead, I said, if you promise me one thing. Name it. No more silence. Not for them. Not for anyone like them. He nodded once, and left without another word. 6 months later, the patches were everywhere. Bases I'd never stepped foot on. Wings stitched to shoulders of techs, drivers, clerks, mess hall schedulers, anyone who'd shown a spark most folks overlooked. They carried no rank, no flair. Just the open arc and silver thread. From silence. I flew less now, but I trained more. Briefed instructors on how to see beyond test scores. Sat in evaluation panels that didn't ask how loud someone spoke, but how clearly they flew. Raven 1 never messaged again. He didn't need to. His defeat had built the runway for something better. And flight from silence? It spread. We found a kid out of Alabama who rewired a drone's targeting relay using only spare circuit board and chewing gum foil. He's flying recon sims now. Another out of Nevada corrected an instructor mid-lecture. Gently, nervously, but right. We put her in a live tower 2 weeks later. She runs control threads smoother than any veteran I've seen. I sit outside most evenings with my model jet beside me. Its nameplate faded just slightly now. Hawkeye 09. Not a call sign anymore. A legacy. One afternoon, Sarah Kim found me on the grass near the old hangar. She'd just passed her final flight eval. Her patch was bright. Her grin even brighter. You remember what you told me? She asked. About skill not waiting for permission? I nodded. Well, she said, I've got 2 more cadets. Quiet ones. They see everything. No one's watching them, yet. I smiled. Bring them in. She sat beside me in the sun. No ceremony. Just 2 pilots and the open sky above. You ever miss it? She asked. Being invisible? I shook my head. No, but I remember it. Every day? She looked confused. Why remember something so painful? I glanced up. Because silence, I wanted to say, taught me how to listen. And listening is how we found flight. Instead, I said, because it's where we all started, and where no one should stay. The wind shifted, soft and familiar. Somewhere, above it all, another engine roared. And I knew someone else, someone quiet, maybe forgotten, was finally flying.